Non-duality Zoom with Don Garland, Hamish, Stansfeld, and me. Thank you for coming. Please keep your microphones muted until invited to speak. This is being shared live on YouTube, so by asking a question, you are giving consent. We encourage you to raise your hand virtually after the brief introductions by unmuting yourself and turning on your camera. Alternatively, you can write your questions in the chat on YouTube or in the Zoom. And with that, let's see. This is for entertainment purposes only. There's no experts or medical advice or anything like that. We're just having fun talking about non-duality, Kundalini, various things. This is not just this. So there's a lot of things we discuss in this meeting. So with that, I wonder if Don could start us off, please.
Okay.
Oh, and did you hit record, you guys? I know you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
So non-duality is the saying that of everything and nothing. There's absolutely nothing happening, no objects, no everything. Everything is appearing and nothing. So there's nothing actually happening. Nothing ever did happen, and nothing ever will. So sort of, and yeah, it's, life continues at the same time. So it's, the essence of it is unconditional love. Really, that's the part of it that is the juicy part of it, I guess, which is the connection that's felt. It's the seeing of love of it in everything as love. Nothing is separate. So there's no, it's the end of separation. So there's no inside or outside anymore. And that's experienced. So it's also known, it's that sort of, so there's always kind of before and after with this in speaking, and the only way I can speak about it really is in linear terms. And so afterwards, there's a sense of the location goes, there's a sense of nothing being here, there is nothing, and yet all this stuff is appearing, all this stuff is happening. So it's and that can be seen, the stillness can be seen in everything as well. So it's very, very beautiful. It's coming to rest where you are. So it's the end of striving in a kind of radical sense. And the striving can still go on for the individual in some ways as well. So it's the life of the individual doesn't stop in a sense, but because even though the identity is fallen away, this is always appearing, this is always happening, and it's always happening in this case for me. So so things, because a lot of people will say things like nothing is personal, but of course for the individual, of course things can be felt personally and sometimes should be felt more personally or whatever. So it's infinitely infinitely paradoxical all the time. So so there's nothing you can do really to bring this about, except for glimpses, perhaps, in the sense that creating the environment for that can kind of bring them on, in a sense, retreats, all kinds of retreats and psilocybin, things like that can certainly give rise to glimpses of this, so you get a taste for it. Otherwise, sort of permanent shift or the falling away is not something you can kind of bring on. So what are the differences? Yeah, just that really, the boundary gone, life seems to unfold much more naturally. Afterwards, suffering can arise. It tends not to stick around, and it can be more intense and sort of be worked through quicker. That's how I experience it. But otherwise everything's the same, but profoundly changed at the same time. So anything that could be said about this can be entirely misleading. So it's not a prescription. Anything said about it, it's not a prescription for how to live. The psychological life goes on. It may be more background because that's how it is. There's presence. So there's a sense of relating from this kind of emptiness, which is beyond conversation, beyond anything else, is this kind of connection. So there's no other, in a sense, it's the end of otherness. There's a sense of aliveness is restored to life as well. So that can be seen also. But life becomes more ordinary over time as well. This can, you kind of get used to it. So it becomes a little bit more difficult to articulate in some ways. But yeah, I certainly, the way I speak about it, it's real danger to, I think, to avoid the, giving credence to the relative self, the individual self, because that doesn't change. This is your life. And so this is a good chance to start again as well, and to actualize things you didn't actualize before, because it can be like a tabula rasa. It can be like a beginning. Maybe some of your old neurosis will fall away. It might make it easier for you to kind of change direction in life. And things tend to kind of happen more in a more sort of step-by-step way. So you might be drawn to things, just it's more about the journey than the destination. I think that's kind of more lived. It's always kind of promoted, but it's more, always living in the future, the idea of getting. But yeah, but anything can occur, and life always takes you by surprise, I think. So anything you say about this, or shifts and changes, sometimes there's periods for me more emptiness because the mind can completely disappear in this. It can come and go. Certainly thought seems to be slowed down for most people, and maybe less ruminative. So there's no not always fear of the future tends to fall away. So I think I've said probably enough. I don't know. So like Walter or
All right. Thank you, Don. Hamish, can you say a few things, please?
Sure. So I don't know what non-duality is. Don't really know what's being pointed to, but so I just talk about Kundalini, which is an energetic shift that comes around the time of awakening. So as that seeking energy begins to weaken and exhaust itself, the body and the nervous system start to adapt in order to take in a higher frequency of energy, or that's what it feels like is happening. Something like that energetic sense that something needs to happen in order for me to feel okay, or to feel fulfilled, or to feel whole. We always feel like we're not enough. Essentially, there's always that sort of underlying agitation of not enoughness, and I think our whole society is built around the fact that people feel like they're not enough. And so yeah, eventually that feeling just through, well, for me, this is all happened here. I was listening to talks like this, and just this sense of me felt like it got thinner and thinner, and then kind of vanished. But now there's still a shit ton of confusion, and I have no idea what was happening really. But there's more and more just kind of a sinking into peace, and it kind of an expansion and the sinking back into your own being, or something like that, because you're no longer reaching for energy somewhere else. You're already sort of plugged into it, or something like that. That's a bit of a waffle, but I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so if anyone's got any questions about Kundalini, yeah, I'll try and answer those. But again, non-duality, I don't really know what's pointed to, but yeah, I guess ultimately this is fulfillment already, so there's nothing to chase, and all those carrots are just carrots. You can't.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so non-duality. I've had a few chats with people recently, and a very popular question, or yeah, a topic of interest is the whole idea of morality and ethics and behavior and helping people, compassion, empathy, this kind of stuff, and how does that tie in with non-duality? Because there's some kind of a misunderstanding that if there's no one here, that there's no one that can help anyone there, and there are no others, so there are no others to help, and all this kind of stuff. And I hear it so much, and I didn't find this through seeking. I didn't find, I didn't find this through listening to speakers. So there was no time when there was a misunderstanding of this message, because when this message was sort of revealed, it was revealed, and it was just a clear seeing that everything was just happening. Life was lifing. Beingness is being. This is just, there's no agency. There's no separate individual that's going to misunderstand this message and then go around not helping people. And if that's what happens, then that's just what apparently happens. Nobody is actually doing that. It's when this is seen that there's not only no agency and no free will, but there's no one to have or not have agency or free will. So in other words, there's no Walter in here being dragged around to do things, and not having free will over what happens. There's no, it's not like I'm helpless or powerless. There's just no one that's powerless. All there is what's happening. So misunderstanding, not misunderstanding, it's sort of a moot point, because what was seen was just that this beautiful mystery that can't be explained because it's all there is. It can't really be seen. It can't be known. It can't be understood. It just is being all that appears. Every action, it's in the seeking. The end of the search was seeing that the search itself was already this whole perfection, this whole complete expression of the beautiful mystery. There's nothing that's not this. It's the bliss, it's the suffering. It's all apparent emotions, it's everything that arises. There's nothing apart from all that is. And if you feel like a fish swimming around looking for the water, there may come a day when you realize there's no separate fish swimming around looking for water. There's just water. The fish was only an appearance in the water. It's, in other words, you're not just immersed in this, you are this. Or there is no you, because there is no separation, there is no individual existence. It's all an expression of the one beautiful mystery. So when I come to these questions about morality and what have you, it's like, let's say, as people are fond of saying in the story, there's a programming, conditioning, enculturation, indoctrination, my upbringing, everything that sort of went into, DNA, what have you, of making this personality, this Walter, the way it is expressing in the way that it is, all that stuff. And then current things that are coming in and information and changes that are made. This is all just a part of the happening. There's no separate individual in there doing all that. It's just what's happening. So people can make improvements. People can make a better dream, as they say. That's all our inclination, is to have a better dream and to help those around us that we love also have a better dream. And that's the most natural thing there is. So I see this as a beautiful, loving message. I don't see it as this nihilistic thing that keeps coming up. It's just that this idea of no responsibility, I think, scares people. And I don't know what to say about that. There's just no separate individual to be responsible. But as has been said, actions have consequences in the dream, or in this apparent reality. And it's my wiring and programming to try to be kind, although sometimes I'm not successful. But there seems to be an apparent desire to be more loving and to because this is all there is. And nobody has this. Nobody owns this. This is just simply being itself. And that feels like a loving thing to share, So anyway, I just say that because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what this means to share a non-dual message about nobody here, nobody there. But I don't see it as a nihilistic or something to be afraid of. Anyway, I rambled on too much. Thank you very much, everybody. So if you have a question, go ahead and jump right in. Thank you. We have a comment from YouTube. It is very disappointing for me that there's nothing going on and the me can't do nothing about it. Also here, extreme boredom, but I guess it's just whatever is happening.
I was thinking about the morality and the ethics question because I
Mhm.
think that's a psychological one. And so if you're in touch with your feelings, I mean, you really know what you feel and you really know what you think about them. As you really start to integrate your stuff, that's when you kind of know for yourself what's right and what's wrong. I mean, that's a proper clarity. That's a different kind of awakening, in a sense, psychological awakening. I don't think non-duality gives you this. And I think responsibility comes with that as well, because I mean, there's feelings are strong when you're really in touch with your emotions. There's certain things you can do, there's certain things you cannot do. I'm not saying anyone's perfect, I certainly am not, but it comes from getting in touch with your authentic self, which is the only thing really you can do. And for the question of free will, I mean, the more self-aware you are, the better choices you can make. It doesn't matter, in a sense, it doesn't really matter that ultimately you're not doing anything. If you can reflect, and I know there's been studies done on this, if you've got the ability to reflect before you know, just before rather than just react, you've got a lot more chance of making a better decision. So the more self-aware we are, the better choices we make. So the more psychologically aware we are, like it's, so I'm just to say, like working on yourself or turning inwards, it's really, really worthwhile, because this is the only life you have, the individual life, you know, it's not, you know, it's very misleading when you take the description of non-duality be literal, because it's beyond the mind. So it's not a prescription for living. It is definitely not. It's detrimental to anyone's health to try and live that out. It's not about living anything out, because, you know, it's just seeing, I mean, seeing beyond space and time. The time was spaceless. It's got nothing to do with the rest. Self, you know, being responsible and being ethical. I prefer the term ethical to moral, because we've been brought up with all these ideas, and they tend to be very not seeing the big picture and things as well. You know, like I think that anyway, I'll leave it there for now. So.
We have another question. Says, is there any value to having therapy after an awakening?
My instinct is to say probably yes. I think so. I mean, I've had some kind of awakening. I don't even know how to quantify it, but certainly there's so much confusion, and yeah, I can only think it would probably be a good idea to go and talk to someone, even if it's just a friend, even if it's not therapy. You know.
I would say, I mean, obviously it's the same as before awakening as after, if there are things you want to look at, because after awakening, patterns can continue just as before. And you can, if you've made yourself small, if you're someone who makes yourself small before awakening, you probably will afterwards, if you don't know what is right and wrong, in terms of if you tend to take the blame, if you know, whatever, you know, if you haven't had accurate mirroring as a kid, this is not going to give you a sense of accurate mirroring. You're not going to be able to judge reality in an undistorted way just because you've had a seeing of this. It's not going to give you that. So we need other people to reflect accurately back to us our own experience, and you know, so we can see ourselves more clearly, we can see life more clearly, and also, you know, so healing, particularly of CPTSD, trauma, and whatever, like it comes through that. And if you don't have, you know, most of us, a lot of people don't have friends have only got so much time, or it depends on your friendships, obviously. But yeah, so it's a good idea definitely to get therapy. I mean, it just, like, and I say that from my own experience, because for quite a few years after my own shift, I was still living out the patterns from before, only they were disguised in a different way. So I have done all those things. That's why I talk about this, because I think it's really important, because I could waste the rest of my life. You know, I really wouldn't want to be where I was after you know, making those same mistakes over and over and over till I die. You know, why do that if you've got a choice? And you do have a choice, you know. And yeah, obviously you can't make someone see, but if there's a willingness there and whatever, you'll see what's those patterns going back into childhood, whatever. So definitely, for me, I say without a doubt. That's not me looking for clients, like really. I've done it, so you know.
Yes, I think there is value in therapy after an awakening. But like I was saying, with the new information coming in, the new conditioning, programming, whatever, learning, what have you, this character changes and can make improvements or can feel better for just sharing and venting or processing, and maybe you know, mirroring, like Dawn was saying, and just having that safe environment where you can just share, and to a non-biased individual that has nothing invested in what's being said. It can be nice. So anyway, I do therapy because the awakening to me is just seeing that it's just beautiful that this life is just lifing. Life is living itself. And I don't know why that translates in people's minds to like, oh, I'll just sit on the couch and do nothing. That's not what's being said. Life through this body seems to want to go to therapy, seems to want to try to live the best life it can, seems, want to do all kinds of things, play music, etc. It's just the way that life is being expressed through this apparent individual. And there's nothing, there's no separate will apart from what seems to be happening. So I can't go with the flow. I can't go against the flow. All there is the flow. Anyway, so yeah, therapy, I'm a fan.
I think I'm lucky because because I'm a therapist, I've got therapy friends, so we kind of talk to each other, so in a way that makes it easy. It's a lot cheaper, but we're kind of very two-way, which is really nice actually. Because yeah, there's something about talking about what's going on for you, even just expressing it, like in itself, that assuages something. It really does, even without looking into it too deeply. But there's a lot we keep in, that we don't articulate. So you can really surprise yourself when you talk about what's going on for yourself, because a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that, and they don't really know what they think, don't really know what they feel. So yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, we got another question. How do you reconcile the idea that the past is just a story with examining your past in therapy?
In therapy, well, the past is just a story. The past it's not just any story, right? It's my story. When it's my past, it's my past, and it hasn't gone anywhere, right? It's here. I can access it right now. So it's part of who I have become. It's not like rain. It's not it's not like carpet. It's a past. It's got some feeling attached to it. It may not have the same gravitational pull as it used to. So, and it's also a puzzle. I mean, there's fascinating aspects in it because you can see the origin, obviously, not of all patterns, because sometimes patterns can, like I was thinking, because narcissistic abuse, something that I specialize in, that can also start in adulthood. For someone who's maybe finds themselves in a country that, living in a country they haven't been to before, they don't have supports around them, they may be vulnerable to exploitation, to meeting people that are narcissistic or whatever. But a lot of things do actually go back to the original, caretaker, mom and dad situation. So, and you see it, you spend your life playing that out. So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Hamish, anything on past is just a story?
Yeah, I guess it's a story. I mean, I still confused about a lot of that stuff. The story seems relevant to me still, so I wouldn't say it's irrelevant. And I think in therapy, it's good to address all these things. And the same with Kundalini. Kundalini is a little bit like taking acid or something like that. Energy is suddenly amplified, and things that were unseen come to light, and that could be something that's in your body that's connected to a memory, and it can be useful just to go there. I mean, I think Kundalini forces all this stuff to come up and out anyway, but I think addressing issues and traumas in the past, and in an environment with psychotherapist is a good idea, regardless of whether it's real or unreal.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that even in, our access to the past can go like dementia, whatever, but it is just access because that's the only bit in the brain that we know about. And in near-death experiences, of course, the past is wholly relived, isn't it, from different points of views as well. So it's whatever it is, whether it's like a fossil, like the Whiteheadian thing for objective immortality, that it's ever present, it's never lost. It's accumulation of the past, whatever way you look at it, or you don't believe in time or whatever, I don't know. But we're right in this moment, like everything. I mean, Tim Freak says this: everything we are is manifesting in this moment. How I'm speaking, I mean, it seems kind of obvious as well. So, everything you are is kind of, and everything I say, and you can kind of see things about someone's past by how they behave, by how they walk and speak, and so. And it's not totally cold for me. Some things in the past have energy to them, and I find it fascinating. And it is my story, and I love that. And what else is there? What else is there? Like sitting on a bench, there's your history, there's your desires for the future, and that's exciting because at the minute I feel very inspired, and that's really exciting. And it's like, it's this momentum and and hopes for the future, and God, none of that's gone for me. Like it's good stuff. So none of this non-duality comes into how I view life at all, like how I kind of orchestrate my, maneuver myself. And I don't know, it's not it's got nothing to do with non-duality, any of this shit, like how you live. It really doesn't, you know I think people try to think non-duality as a kind of sub-personality or something, and oh man, you don't want to do that. Just everything that's non-duality, once you've woken up, just chuck it out, be free. It's just concepts when we talk about this stuff. It really is. It's just
Yes, this where is that question? Excuse me. But where'd it go? Oh, the past is just a story. Yeah. So the past is just a story. The future is a story. The now is a story. I mean, what isn't the story? It's what I was saying earlier about dreaming a better dream, or having a better story. Sure. The memories of the past are affecting my present, in the story. But it's all there is. There's no out of the story. There's no way to stop being a dream character or a character in this book called You. It's all, it's kind of like the idea of waking up to the dream as opposed to from the dream. You kind of wake up, you see, oh, it's a dream, or it's this is an apparent relative existence. But it's actually this one beautiful happening with no separation. And it's kind of like the both and, the real and the unreal. So yes, I'm not going to, this is not a philosophy that I apply in my life and say the past is just a story, so I don't need therapy. It doesn't work like that. You see that whatever is happening, including going to therapy, is also just this beautiful mystery expressing itself as an apparent individual going to therapy, trying to better their life. Next question. Can an awakening be induced via psychedelics? Hamish, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, when I noticed pronounced Kundalini symptoms and shaking and knots coming undone in my up and down my spine, that I was tripping at the time. I think psychedelics can definitely loosen the system and the organism. And maybe if you're someone who's into non-duality and you're sort of I don't know, the seeking is coming to an end, and then suddenly your body's very relaxed, and yeah, energy can move through, and odd things can happen. I mean, I used to do psychedelics way too much, and certainly that wasn't a good idea. So I don't recommend overdoing it. But yeah, there's something to psychedelics. There's you know, you when you're taking psychedelics, it's a bit like Kundalini. You're turning the volume up, and things that are unseen might come to light, and that might be pretty and cathartic, or it might be hellish. I don't know, a bit like a Kundalini awakening. So, yeah, yeah.
They are quite common in psychedelics, glimpses for sure. I mean, that's the data on it, and it is the case, you know, and it seems like something is constellated before the event as well. So, I mean, Bernardo Kastrup talks about that, like a lot of synchronicities tend to happen before taking psilocybin, particularly if it's a first trip. So there is something, and I always said this, and I always felt it, that there's something about an expectation when you're about to do something like that, or to do something profound or whatever it is. It does seem to bring, you know, that sort of a kind of magic things sort of happen in a strange way. Maybe you experience more synchronicities in that and sort of stuff. So yeah, I think there is something in the energy of expectation too. And heightened energy for sure. I think there's something in that tends to give rise to it. But yeah, and retreats is really common for people to have glimpses. I think that's pretty common. So
Yes, it sounds like, from what I hear, it's not what happened with me, but that you can get a taste of it or something like that from taking psychedelics. Yeah, I guess it's just a difference between, all there is what seems to be happening, taking psychedelics, not taking psychedelics, whatever is arising, is this absolute perfection expressing itself as that. And then feeling like a separate individual who's taking psychedelics to have an experience of this expansiveness or something. So you're someone separate from all that is, trying to experience all that is. If there's something that feels a little different about that. So, but that's also in the dream of, because all there is this, appearing as someone who wants to experience everything. So is there anyone in the Zoom that has a question, or I could keep going with the questions online? But feel free to jump in if you're here with us. We'd like to chat with you. Does Hazel have a question? Or Andy? Let's see, who we got? Andy and Alex. Okay, go for it, Andy, and then Alex, please.
Hey there. It's like two questions here. This is the first one's to you, Walter. Earlier you spoke about a loving message, but seeing a loving message or wanting to convey the loving message. So has non-dual seeing made you more ethical? That's the first question. And then to Don, you were just talking about things happening due to expectation. But what's therefore is your explanation for an anticlimax?
Well, I'll take the first one then. So the loving message to me is, there's nothing that needs to be done for this to be what it already is, which is whole, complete, perfect, all of those things. This is God, as some people might say. God expressing himself as Andy. God being Andy, you know what I mean? God Andying. I think that's a loving message because at least as a seeker, I remember feeling apart from not good enough, like there was something that needed to be realized, something I needed to wake up to, something I needed to achieve, accomplish. There was somewhere else, something else. It wasn't already here. It wasn't already this. It was, other people had it, but
Yeah,
not
but
me.
since
So isn't that a loving message, or do you not
yeah,
see
but
my point? That
no,
that's a loving message.
my question is, the Walter, is that after seeing that message, do you
Yes.
think that you have consciously or deliberately become a more ethical person in your day-to-day affairs?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if non-duality had an influence on how I conduct myself. I think, I was always a pretty nice person in general. I'm sure there's a few people out there might disagree, but I'm just another bozo on the bus, as I like to say, trying to do the best I can. But I don't think I became more ethical or more, I was never much into causing harm to begin with. I don't know maybe exactly what you mean by ethical, but in some ways I did a lot of selfless acts before, but it was almost a hidden agenda of, the karma thing, or, this is how somehow I benefit from this activity, So it was a little bit selfishly motivated, some of that stuff. But that was also in pursuit of enlightenment, this selfless acts and things like that. Not to do so, I mean, those were great, but I'm just saying, and I think in my head there was an idea that it was going to lead somewhere. Anyway, I hope I answered your question.
And also morality can be a camouflage for all kinds of violence, can't it? I mean, morality has been used in so many contexts for cover for fear, for, used as a kind of, scapegoat someone, or like that, in that sense of doing your duty, or that's why I say, like, going back to the emotions, it's kind of like almost like an individual thing. Maybe when it becomes healthy, it's much more seeing the bigger picture, or whatever, and then just what feels like is more of a feeling thing, maybe, rather than this is wrong and this is right, that kind of black and white thinking that when you're very young or you're very prejudiced, you have. I mean, God, that the press perpetuate and all that kind of thing. It's kind of basic, isn't it? It's a bit, anyway.
Okay.
What yours was, something about.
And you had another question for Don, right, Andy?
Yeah, it's kind of small question. No? You were talking about things perhaps happening due to expectation. If you expect a result, it's more likely to happen, kind of thing. But I was wondering about how do you then explain the anticlimax?
Oh, it wasn't like expecting a result. I was just talking about something Bernardo Castro was talking about, just that kind of, before taking a first psilocybin trip, for instance, he was saying about like how something's constellated already. There's like a sense of that's going to take place, but the energy of that can seem to give rise to a lot of synchronicity and stuff, around that. I'm not saying that expectation is a guarantee that something's going to happen. It's a very common story, isn't it, that someone's going to see some spiritual teacher or go to a retreat or do something they've never done before, and maybe they find themselves driving there and nobody's driving, something like that, or else suddenly they're in a bliss state, or suddenly the right person appears at the right time, that kind of thing. It's just interesting what comes about is that sort of thing in life, of also in a more simple way of like walking down the street and turning right instead of left as you normally do. You suddenly open yourself up to more kind of magic in a way. Sometimes it just seems like that, just a bit of novelty in life can give rise to that in a sense, in a subtle sense, or not so subtle, you know, but it can give rise to nothing. It could be boring as fuck. I don't know, like, but yeah. So I'm not saying it's not a method, like, I mean, it's just a kind of observation in a sense, and you know, I mean, I think a lot of people feel that in novelty, don't they? There's an energy in that, and too much of it can be boring as well. So
All right, thank you. Alex, you have a question?
Yeah, hey there. There's a question for Dawn with respect to your continued experience of suffering. And the context is, or rather, I ask so as to contextualize with a view to contextualize my own experience. I had an awakening a couple of years ago, and just from what you guys have talked of your experience, there are very clearly there are different types of awakening, different categories, let's say, or different awakenings with different consequences. But I was surprised, I guess it's not the right word anyway, but I was taken when you talked about continued suffering. My experience is that I now have a deep embodied understanding of the nature of suffering. Let's say it's transparent to me, in inverted commas, and I'm in a position where I can't suffer. It's something that's not available, such as judgment, for example, understanding. I don't mean understanding, knowing about at mind level, but having a deep embodied understanding, use that word, of judgment. And that falls away. The illusion of it, the illusion of positionality has become evident, to the extent that I can't take a position. I can't declare something good or bad or right or wrong, and react to judgments based upon that. And so I was, well, there was no reaction, but just interested in let's say the nature of your suffering.
I think for me, like it's quick, like something will move through me quick. It depends what it is, and I get from what you're saying, I'm kind of imagining this is what my fantasy is, like that actually you're not in a situation that's kind of really, like, technically speaking, from any point of view, awful. If you're in a situation where you feel trapped and it's really, really unhealthy, you know, maybe you're not, or maybe nothing can touch you, and then you might be in a very, very deep place, because I don't think anything can touch me initially. But if you're trapped and really actually being abused, and I've been in those situations post awakening, and sometimes, you know, on maybe 2 occasions I went into overwhelmed states that were really quite profound. They didn't last more than a day, but they could have had consequences. So I'm not saying, and also I lost someone recently. I lost someone a few weeks ago, and intense grief about that. You know, but there's also a beauty in that. That's you know, there's love, and it's all intermingled, like, but a lot of sadness around that, and I wouldn't change that. But I'm not saying, maybe for you it's like that, and maybe that's really, really deep. I'm not great, and you know, but positionality, and maybe it'll stay like that for you, or, but I am really glad I do have a position, like, as in I know what's good for me and what's not good for me, or, but I suspect, maybe I'm wrong, but I suspect there's not something you're desperate to get out of, or am I wrong?
No, it's not, and that's something I consider. It's easy to be enlightened sat in a cave or a cell, right, with very little pressure on you, with no responsibility. Yet I have been exposed to narcissistic abuse all my life.
Oh, right. Okay. Interesting.
And you know, I mean, it's pretty fucking hardcore. But post awakening, it's for. I'll slow down. I just see the other person suffering, I see that their expression, the abuse is simply them defending their ego position, and so I don't. It cannot be personal. It's not something that affects. Go on.
I hear that, and it's funny because, you know, through being a therapist, I think sometimes the problem for some, you know, people I've worked with is that they're too busy seeing the other person, and there's, you know, like, and those defenses and why that's arisen to actually, you know, care about, you know.
Oh, no, it's all that's left.
Your case, but
yeah, no, that's all, because I suffered. I had no idea what was going on. You know, and that's the insidious nature of it. If someone punches you in the face, you know that you're being abused.
Oh yeah,
whereas
that's
narcissism is
in some ways that's easier.
so,
yeah,
because I didn't know. But then afterwards, I'm like, holy shit, this is what's, and there's just, I can see what's, but it didn't touch me. I experienced clear sentience as well. So I feeling the somatic portion of what makes up an emotion. So I feel someone's somatic anger, yet there's no thought associated. It's not an emotion to me, rather the somatic side of emotion. And so it's really deeply connected to the other person. So let's say I feel the other person's pain, yet don't suffer it. There's no emotional, there's no intellectual component. There's no thought associated with it, which will combine to be an emotional response or reaction.
And I'll say as well, Dawn, that when I met Alex, I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. I thought that's bullshit, because no one doesn't suffer, and no one's free of judgment. Because I can't imagine being free of it myself. That I was like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. And we actually sort of went mental one night. It's like, I was like, you're lying. You must experience judgment, and it's just because I couldn't fathom that experience until I lived with him for 1.5 years, and I realized that, oh yeah,
well, 1.5 years is a long time. Yeah, I imagine you'd be pretty tough if you're hiding shit for that long living with someone. Yeah, I'm sure you are like that, and maybe it's really just very, very profound with you. I think in every case it does vary. It really does. And I've seen that because I do have clients who are awake, and I have had, you know, I know people are awake, and I know what's happened after and before, and I think it can be very different. And also the situations they're in, and I don't know your history of narcissistic abuse, like, well, it's a history, so you had years, maybe it's gone right through your adult life until recently, until the awakening. Is that the case?
Yeah, parental, familial, and then friends. I was good friends to people who would be diagnosed as having narcissistic personality disorder.
Well,
so something I know.
You did it all. I did that.
Yeah, quite. But without knowing it, because having, and again, it's even using, even I don't want to use the word like, but it's trite to label someone an abuser, because they're fucking suffering. They really are. It's absolutely horrific, and being on the receiving end of it is equally horrific. Not with hindsight, but say my current position is there's nothing but love. You know, when I do like metta meditation, if I go to a thing, it's you know, I just choose these people. Just there's no resentment. I cannot resent, as in re-feel the situation.
But it's really important. It is really important that, you know, that people do see the abuser, and that it's not okay. Like, I know you probably see that as well, but somebody might hear that and they think, because it's like, that's, you know, I remember Alice Miller saying that about Hitler. Even if he had kids and took it out in his kids, God forbid, like, whatever, he may not have taken it out in countless and countless, you know, millions of people, like, but it's like, because he never was angry, he never said anything bad about his dad, no matter he got 39 or whipped times a day, you know, he never, dad wasn't a pedestal. If you don't go back into your past and put anger where it belongs, you've got a risk of repeating. I mean, and maybe you don't need that, but it's just that people will hear that, and they hear it in a certain way, you know.
Yeah, no, within a paradigm of, within a context of positionality, and within the realm, within the non-linear realm of good and bad, right and wrong, of course, I distinguish. But let's say in a state of love, then things are drastically different. But let's say in the real world, in what most people see as the real world, to distinguish between what is utterly detrimental and use the word wrong and bad if you like, and in that context, of course, yeah, it's fucking horrific. And
I guess if
and that's the
someone was
radical acceptance. Sorry, go on. You can.
I was just going to say, if you know, you're obviously talking to Dawn as Dawn, rather you're not talking to like
no, I'm not talking to everybody,
to everyone, and so
No.
like what you might say to someone who's had an experience and they very much are in a state of trauma. You know, you're not going to say in that moment to them, there's no right and wrong. That's not a loving, helpful thing to say.
I've worked with people who have experienced, say, who suffer narcissistic abuse, and obviously I don't.
Are you therapists then, or are you?
Oh no, I'm a spiritual teacher in inverted commas.
Oh, right. Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. But of course, context. I'm not making, this might sound like a blanket statement, and I'm not saying it's right and should be forgiven, etc. Of course not in any kind of blanket manner.
But the radical acceptance is that too, isn't it? Like, it's innocent. It's all innocent, like in a sense. It is the wound, of course. It's really frustrating when you get clients come in and I had a great childhood. They won't touch. They won't.
Quite, and they don't see. Yeah, well, there's so many people. I had my parents were so loving, and you dig in, it's like, dude, that's fucking abuse. That really isn't. You didn't have the upbringing that you thought, and that was the case for myself as well.
But it's also as well, like, I mean, I think I say that in Lacanian psychotherapy, like, you can't destroy anyone in effigy. You're in a room, for fuck's sake. You're talking to a therapist. You're not talking to them. For fuck's sake, enjoy the opportunity to just, that pissed me off. This, blah, blah, whatever. Because it's just to explore emotionally, honestly, is a relief. But yeah, on a certain level, of course, it's all innocent. There's no one. It's created all that stuff. I mean, okay, certain paths are born, aren't they? It's a bit boring.
But then, if the individual having the experience and having the history and having suffered the abuse, if that individual, it can only be that individual at a certain level of consciousness, free of blame and therefore free of forgiveness, that can be in a position to, let's say, radically accept.
And then there comes a point where there's nothing to accept. Because
then there's nothing to accept. Just in a place of everything is what it is, and there can be no suffering, and there can be no blame, no forgiveness, because no position can be taken. Then that whole thing is, let's say, is self-contained. But obviously that is not relevant for people for the vast majority of people who suffer, and they suffer at the hands of let's say psychologically disturbed people incapable of love. But we'd be talking for ages.
Forgiveness is irrelevant really in radical acceptance on that level. But at the same time, I could say there's one or two things that happened I will never forgive. I don't think I'll ever forgive. So I mean, it's both for me. Like maybe that's my lacking. But yeah, most people, you don't jump straight to forgiveness because you just get yourself in a mess. But that's the whole thing.
No.
It's you too. I don't know, and maybe it's not for you. I can't, only in extreme situations I could go into overwhelm, but and it doesn't happen very often. I think last year it happened twice, something like that. But it's like it can happen, and but those are extreme situations, and and maybe you don't have that. It must relate to my earlier wounds, how that manifests now. But it takes a lot to push me to that. But I'm not fucking immune, but I'm a lot more than I was. So a lot of things I would have taken personally, I wouldn't, and some things I wouldn't have taken personally, I will. Probably because I know that, fuck off, that's not okay, mate. Or I don't know. It's all. I don't know. But yeah, no, I love it. I love what you say. I get that as well. I respect that for sure. And yeah, and you must be really easy to be around, you know, like, because year and a half, most people, if they're hiding.
I'm not that bad.
Aren't you smarting for you? Like, tomorrow, we'll start tomorrow.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, cool. Well, thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you. I am, something is, got a question? You got your hand up. I am BODARPATHY.
Lamborder Party.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi, Walter.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, like as you were mentioning, it is a story, but everything is a story. And when we are discussing, I can understand and correlate. But then when things happen and I feel like jealousy, anger, or other negative feelings, I am not able to bring this teaching to my life. I mean, somehow then it takes a while. Later on, maybe I realize that things are not, I should not be doing. And I read books and I can understand and follow. But at the moment when I need to do, still I do. Of course, I mean, it is a story, but how do can I do something to assimilate this kind of teaching to my daily life?
Well, I think the message that I talk about is not actually a teaching that can be applied. It's just describing that all of life, including struggling, including wanting to apply this somehow, or use this as a philosophy or integrate it. I mean, it can't be any more integrated than it already is. It is you. You are life expressing itself as you. It's already happening. So the flow of life is happening, even if it's experienced as resistance. So yeah, that's all I can say really is, I think for me, it was a relief in the sense that it's always already. And there's no getting it wrong. There's no getting it right. It just is. We were talking, me and somebody, about something Robert Saltzman said, and he said he's not looking for an escape hatch. You know, I was always looking for a way out. But there's nobody trapped in this. It's just the whole thing. It's a whole beautiful expression of life living itself. There's no higher way to do this. There's no more spiritual. There's no more godlike when it's all there is. I don't know. So anything else?
I think you can
Yeah.
be as well. I just
wanted to feel like reduce the pain. I mean, yeah, I can say as it is, but yeah, just wanted to see if I can do some. Of course, I mean, what you are saying is we will not be able to do, and we will have to take as it is. But so yeah, I get it. Thank you.
And there's no having to take it as it is either. There's no prescription anywhere to be found in it. And anything I'm saying about this, because whatever's showing up is this already.
yeah, and it's not about suppressing the jealousy, the anger. I mean, all that stuff is natural, and you know, in a certain context. That's all your shadow material, isn't it? In some cases, for some people, it might be the good stuff that's in the shadow, and can be the way as well. Especially if being narcissistically abused, your good stuff may well be the stuff that you're not seeing, the stuff that's unconscious, the stuff that you need to kind of own. But yeah, don't there's nothing worse than having jealousy, envy, and all that, and then suppressing it. You know, you're just doubling the problem, and you're not the defenses. That's not who you are. You know, maybe what's arising, but you know, you're who you really are. Like in terms of emotions and everything else. I mean, it's you gotta sometimes access that, get in touch with that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did Andy have another question? Or let's see, do we have any other hands up? No. Okay. So we'll go back to YouTube. We got questions on YouTube. After an awakening, is there a danger of escaping into the now to avoid confronting your traumas and neurosis?
Danger of escaping into the now. Well, I think if there are neurosis and things like that, there will be, you know, in a way. I mean, I feel like here, because there's no more reaching for future, there's less and less need for the next moment because everything is already here. You could say that everything is now, I suppose. But yeah, the neurosis and things will come to light, and there is a sense here of like some kind of gravitational pull that is kind of inescapable. So yeah, it kind of feels like being sucked into the now, in a sense.
You can use it as an escape from it in a sense, or else in my own case, I suppose I was so absorbed, I just wasn't aware, like say patterns that I had and stuff that was repressed. We wouldn't realize that because repression is, it didn't happen. That's what's, you know, so it's, you know, you don't realize you're repressed. Well, there's a certain sense of when the repressed comes to light that you kind of knew it anyway, in a sense. There's, you know, so all these different, yeah, you can kind of hang out in bliss rather than go into your feeling for some people. So yeah, it can be an escape from it, but sometimes it's not even escape from it. It's just, you don't realize it's there because you're so immersed. So yeah, I think there's truth in that as well. You can use it as spiritual bypass. Some people do. So yeah, I mean, and it's a very nice one. So, you know, and sometimes there's a place for that as well. It's nice to take a rest. You know, if you do have access to that, yeah, you know, it's great. Sometimes you can, in the midst of something, you can just sit and be empty and just sit with what is, and kind of in a blissful way as well. But I think a lot of people do use it as spiritual bypass, but not in a conscious way. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's not, you know, although I think I might have done it in a conscious way a couple of times, but there's nothing wrong with that from time to time.
Okay. Talking about the past is another expression of life. No more, no less. Memories of what is gone can be present, if you know what I mean. Okay, thank you. Next question. How can everything be unconditional love when there are atrocities happening all over the world, all the time? What do you think, Dawn?
Who fucking knows? Tim Freak's a good one for that. Like he talks about, like, yeah, it's sort of all evolving, and we are as well. I mean, yeah, it's horrific, isn't it? I don't know. I can't make a lot of sense of it, but yeah, you know, who knows what the bigger picture is? If there is a bigger picture, I suspect there is, and I think life continues anyway. So, but I don't want to be. If there is reincarnation, I don't want to be reborn in a shitter situation. I am already, like, for sure. But yeah.
Hamish, you got anything about atrocities?
No, I don't know. I don't know. Um, they suck, but I don't know why they happen.
Yeah. I guess it's your interpretation of unconditional love because it's a funny term because when it's used, it's really saying that everything is allowed. There are no rules. Nothing is excluded. It's all inclusive because it is being everything. So it's being all apparent people, all apparent situations, all apparent actions that are being done are not being done by anyone, but they are being done, and people are being hurt, and it's awful. And you know, I empathize with it, and I have feelings and emotions about it. But the thing is, according to what I'm saying, it's just this no thing being everything. So it is being war, it is being atrocities, it is being all the horrible things, and also the good people and kindness and generosity and beauty and people that are working against these atrocities or trying to correct them or do the right thing. So it's everything. So that's why it's called unconditional. As far as the love part, I don't know. I mean, it's this whole giving human qualities to some infinite, unknowable, what some people label as consciousness, or um, it doesn't matter what you call it. But so to put love or this, it's just unconditional. Because it'd be the same thing if you said unconditional hate. It's just, there are no conditions. It's just everything. Everything that's appearing is this. Um, so it can appear as atrocities. That doesn't make them any less atrocious. Catherine says conditional love would say horror shouldn't be there. It's the unconditional that is manifest.
Unconditional love isn't saying anything, is it? Like, yeah, like, yeah. And we're evolving, aren't we? You know, we're still evolving, we're still learning, and then maybe too slowly, maybe we're fucked. Who knows? But you know, it's yeah, it's not great. But
Okay, Jack Saturday says he's quoting Werner Herzog. Do you not hear this horrible scream all around you that people usually call silence? Do you not then hear this horrible scream all around you that people usually call silence? I guess it's not known, says Catherine.
one silent noise, isn't it?
When I used to take magic mushrooms, one of the first things that I would notice when I was coming up was the silence, like how quiet it is. Because I suppose your mind's normally running 24/7 and it's suddenly interrupted. And so I always used to find come ups very scary because you become eerily aware of silence.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny concept anyway, the unconditional love, because if something was excluded, we wouldn't know about it. If it wasn't allowed to exist, we wouldn't be aware of it anyway. So it's just common to say, oh, everything is allowed, so it's unconditionally loving. But how do we know that? It could be turning all kinds of things away.
So how is your Kundalini anyway, Hamish, since nobody's talking? How are your areas?
It's slowed down a bit because I've been ill. I've got tonsillitis this week, and I was in bed with fever, so there wasn't much. The Kriya, they still happen if I lie down. It doesn't stop them, but they kind of slow down a little bit.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, so they're just picking up again now. But yeah, generally lots of energy, still just cracking knots in my neck. This just goes on and on and on, and energy's kind of spilling into the brain. And
any shifts psychologically with it, or
no,
okay.
Psychologically it's all exactly the same. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just still very intense, fast, rapid movements. But no real changes in my day to day other than suddenly the energy becoming intense and maybe less so. When I'm still,
what? Sorry, go on.
when I'm still for a while, because for a while I wasn't able to stop moving at all, but now there's moments of stillness, and then there's this kind of expansion, this energetic kind of shifting,
Oh, what, that feels really good. Like...
Yeah, and kind of a bit weird, but good as well. Like you're just sort of falling back into a different frequency.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Absent it. Also.
Yeah. It's weird. And it's not in my chest that's slowly coming undone, like this tightness that I've had in my chest heart area for years and years and years, and it's sort of tackling that in the same way that it tackles knots. It's tackling that little energetic knot. So my breathing kind of, when my attention goes there, my breathing changes, and it's like doing some kind of purging, healing type thing.
Oh, right. Okay, so there's been physical changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nah. I don't know. But yeah, no other phenomenon or like...
Nothing dramatic. No, the movements continue to be dramatic. So they'll happen when I stand now. So if I'm standing and I allow it, my hand will grab my leg like in a yoga class and just pull it backwards, and I'll do like full on postures that you do in yoga. And so yeah, an intensification in the movements, and like I'm climbing up the wall, doing like headstands, like the body like using the wall quite a lot. And
oh really? Whoa.
Yeah, pushing off the wall, sort of my legs walking up the wall and doing a headstand and my hands coming off the carpet.
You need to be quite fit then. I know you are.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been ill recently, but generally it's pretty, it's quite exhausting. It's like it's turning more and more into like full-on yoga classes.
How bizarre.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can really see the origins in it then. You know,
completely. Some of the movements are the same, just exactly the same, and others are just slight variations on the types of movements that I already do. But yeah, you could draw a picture of what I'm doing and just take it to a yoga practitioner, and they'll just go, "Oh, that's that pose," you know.
How long has it been going on for now, the Kriya stuff?
A year and 4 months and 5 months.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
pretty long for consistent, isn't it?
yeah. But the energy's getting more and more crazy, so there's more and more jumping around and up and down. I haven't put a video out for a while, but I will. Like I said, I've just been ill, so
All right.
yeah.
For no reason, or did you just get fed up? The video
With the
stuff?
video, well, they're all a bit samey. Like I need to change location or get a better lighting or something. I don't know. I don't know. But no, I think sometimes I just film them and I don't post them if there's something in it. I don't know. I just.
All right. Cool.
But I know I will. I'll post more soon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Everyone questioned out.
Well, there's no harm in ending 10 minutes early, unless anybody has a question. Otherwise, I'll just say thank you, everyone, for attending. All the questions on YouTube and right here in the Zoom. I really appreciate it. We'll do this again next month. Next week, I have Giselle Suarez on the channel, 3:00 p.m. Eastern time. So join me for that. And Dawn, got anything to plug?
Oh God, yeah. When's my next meeting? It's my next London meeting is on Friday, the 29th of this month, at the Philadelphia Association in Hampstead. So yeah, 7 o'clock, 7 to 9 o'clock. So yeah, come along. You can just show up at the door and pay there. It's only 15 quid. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got. But yeah, it's cool.
How about you, Hamish?
Well, my channel's called Kundalini and Non-Duality, and I'm going to start a podcast fairly soon with a guy called Tommy, who posted on a few of my videos, and we kind of got in touch. And he's going through similar Kundalini stuff, but he's sort of 12 years down the line, and so it's an interesting dynamic when we talk. So I'll be posting a few of videos of us interacting on my channel, and eventually maybe get other speakers in to talk about Kundalini as well. I think that's the plan long term.
And how do we find your channel? What's the name?
Kundalini and Non-Duality. It's on YouTube.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again the next time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.